welcome to Brad and Will Made a Tech Pod. I'm Will.
I'm Brad. Hello.
Hi, Brad. We're going to get to ranking shortly, but I wanted to let folks on the podcast know, if they hadn't heard already, that friend of the show and I think multiple time guest. I can't remember if we had him on once or twice.
Yes.
And my good friend Gordon Mah Ung, who was one of my mentors at Maximum PC when I started, and I ended up being his boss by the end of it, which was weird. But he passed away after after having pancreatic cancer for a fairly long time, just before Christmas. This is the first episode we've recorded since then, and we're gonna do a remembrance episode over on the Full Nerd at PC World, as I think probably after CES, just because scheduling is hard and a bunch of people are out of town for holidays and stuff. But I wanted to let folks here know, because Gordon was on this show. He was on he came on Oktobercast back in the tested days, and showed up off and on over the years, but has always been the person one of the people that I reach out to and talk to when I have questions about, when I have weird things happening with computers. Gordon has always been the person I called.
So a font of wisdom, a rock.
Yeah, it's like he's the origin of so many things that I hold true and dear. Like, hey, if your computer just restarts with a black screen, that probably means your power supply is dying. Okay. Or
that is a truism that I hold to this. That has served us well in the last couple of years. That has proved true multiple times. That's fundamental.
It's always true. He's one of the people, when I started at Maximum PC, even before I was a full time there, I did the doctor column, which was our write in and ask people for help with their computer problems column. And he and I were the ones who realized that every year in August, the letters we would get were all, hey, my computer's black screening a lot. Like, those numbers would go up because people's rooms were warmer and the power supplies were thus less efficient. So the power was sagging and they were black screening. And that's when that started.
Yeah. Just in the context of this show, he was our go-to CPU guy, if you remember.
Yeah, for a long time.
CPU launches, he has been the guy, because he is in fact the guy, right, in that space.
He has been the guy in that space for since the turn of the century. He famously did the rant. He did Gordon Mah Ung's rant of the week on the No BS podcast, the Maximum PC podcast, a long, that started in 2006 or 2007. I went back and I've been listening to a few of the older ones as they have. I actually uploaded the whole run to archive.org if people want to go find it. And it was fun listening to the first few of those, when it was just at first it was just Gordon being grumpy about stuff, which was kind of his public persona. It wasn't exactly how he was all the time, but then people liked him being grumpy about stuff. So he started leaning into it and he got grumpier and grumpier. and then after 6 months, he had a moment where he was like, I'm a little worried that this is becoming a thing that is going to be a problem for me. Cause I go to trade shows and people are like, hey, say something angry.
Mm-hmm.
And
life starts imitating art. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. But he wasn't Gordon Gordon was grumpy about stuff for sure, but he wasn't a grumpy guy. He was always the guy who was kind of getting into good trouble. One time early at Maximum PC, when we were still in the downstairs in the Brisbane office, which was where we were when I first started, and the lab was this. It was kind of a big conference, a double-sized conference room with full. Everybody else had drop ceilings, and the lab was all exposed ceilings with stuff sprayed on the concrete and steel underneath and all that. And exposed hanging lights and smoke detectors, and the benches were just these metal racks that had 3 shelves on them. And he got in there and I was like, hey, can we do airflow analysis on cases? Put a piece of clear plexi on the side of a case and then blow smoke through the intakes and see which way. Because at this point, this was long enough ago that people were like, should you suck air in the front and blow it out the back, or should you suck it in the back and blow it out the front?
Yes, the whole positive versus negative pressure.
Well, not even that. We hadn't even gotten to that point yet. It was just literally, is it better to aim the fan so that the air moves in through the front over the hard drives and then over the CPU cooler and then out the back? Or is it better to go the other way and have the back fan push in and the front fans suck out. I think was the point. This was in probably 2001 or 2002.
Okay, that was barely out of the beige box era.
It was still beige box era, 100%. Yeah. Like we probably hadn't seen our first aluminum Cooler Master case at that point. And so Gordon was like, "Oh, I have a smoke machine," because of course Gordon had a smoke machine. He always had it. He always had like somebody was like, "Hey, does somebody have a karaoke machine?" Gordon was like, "What kind do you need? You want a CD or you want tapes, or Laserdisc rather?" And so he was like, "Yeah, of course I have a smoke machine." And I was like, "I think the smoke machine might set off the smoke detectors in the lab." And everybody was like, "Well, we'll just ask forgiveness if it happens, blah, blah, blah. It's not that big a deal." And Gordon went up and asked the facilities person. And she said, with no uncertain terms, "Yeah, don't do that. I don't know if it's set off the smoke detector or not, but don't do that." And then we were like, "It's probably fine." So we climbed up and put bags over the smoke detectors that we knew about.
Great.
Missed one.
Wonderful.
And filled the entire lab with smoke. So it looked like a Cheech and Chong set. And everybody's having a great time. And then the smoke detector goes off and we have to evacuate the entire building because it's wired into the central fire service.
Wow.
And the fire department shows up. And it was a bad, we got yelled at. I thought I'd been there for a few months and I thought I was going to get fired.
I'm kind of surprised you didn't get fired. You know, at least the sprinklers didn't go off.
I mean, everybody was pretty pissed at Gordon for asking permission and not telling us that he'd asked permission.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
and been told no.
Oh, I saw. You didn't know?
No, I missed that part, I guess. But
great.
But yeah, it was everything was fine, and I think at that point Gordon realized that they weren't going to fire him for anything, so he kind of used that to great advantage, and was always fearless about asking questions, both internally. Like he was the guy who would ask the hard question in the internal company meeting, where they're like, "We're pretty sure we're not going to have to lay anybody else off again." And he's like, "Well, sure, I was pretty sure."
I could see that for sure. Yeah. I didn't know Gordon super well, but I had the great privilege of getting to podcast with him a couple times over the last couple of years, live stream and stuff, and found him to be every bit as knowledgeable and welcoming and friendly and irate and all the other superlatives as you would expect, but like a true force, just a very fun, entertaining guy to be around, like even off camera, like just very fun to hang out with him.
Well, an incredible depth of knowledge about like computers and systems and CPUs. Like he was always our CPU coverage editor at Maximum PC the entire time I was there. He continued that at PC World, and he's going to be horribly missed by like just to be clear, it's not just I've been doing stuff at PC World for about a year now and meeting with vendors and seeing people that I haven't seen in a really long time. And the first question they always have is, "How's Gordon?" So it's not. He's the kind of person that would write a horrific review of your CPU or give you grief for your failure or whatever. And the people who are doing the work on the other side of the table don't care. I mean, because they know he's right. Yeah. And so it's hard to argue with him.
You have to assume that he arrived at it fairly.
Yeah. So anyway, I just wanted to talk about it a little bit. I'm going to miss him horribly. He did have medical expenses and stuff like that, and has left. He's survived by his wife and 2 kids and his mom and his sister. And I know just Gordon was always really private about stuff. So he didn't want to do a GoFundMe for a long time, but he let them put one up at the end. So if you enjoyed Gordon on the podcast and you want to help contribute to their stuff, we'll put a link in the show notes and would love whatever support you can give. So anyway,
our condolences to his family and friends.
Yeah. Yeah. But I guess now on, as Gordon would have said before, Adam talked about it, but he was like, "Hey, don't stop doing the stuff that you do." He was really proud of the Full Nerd because that was the thing that he had made that wasn't like somebody else's thing that he came into. Right. So he's like, "Hey, you have to keep doing the podcast." Okay. And we're going to keep doing the podcast here, which means we're getting to the very serious business of ranking things. If anybody, the worst segue I've ever done, just for the record.
If anybody would have wanted us to continue with an extremely dumb computer hardware related journey, it was him.
Yeah. This also, like, just to be clear, lightning in the top part of the list would have sent him apoplectic and screaming at the radio the whole way through.
Really?
Oh, yeah. Proprietary cables are the worst.
Oh, was that it? Okay. Like that I could see. What was it? What were his feelings on Apple? I don't think I Okay.
I mean,
Say no more.
He didn't like Steve Jobs at all.
Okay, well, that's understandable.
Not for the reasons that people who are rational about Steve Jobs didn't like Steve Jobs.
Oh.
He didn't like Steve Jobs because he felt like he was all smoke and mirrors and didn't actually deliver on anything.
Wait, those are the reasons most people do like Steve Jobs.
Right. That's exactly it. So, yeah, Gordon, not a huge fan of Steve Jobs. I think grudging respect for the hardware that Apple has eventually made. Like, I think if when I talked to him about like the stuff they were doing with the ARM processors, he was always kind of like, oh yeah, this is they've finally done something good. And when I made him use a trackpad, an Intel MacBook with a real trackpad on it, he was like, oh, this is like, I understand why you would want this, so you don't have to carry a mouse with you everywhere you use your computer.
Yeah.
But yeah, anyway. So somebody in the chat had a really good recommendation.
Yeah,
I think it was FEV.
FEV, I believe, was the first person to suggest this, although several people came in with it.
Yeah, they tagged on and they suggested that instead of trying to put everything on a numerical list ordered from 1 to whatever number of connectors we have, that we just tier rank stuff.
Currently 76, although that would probably get bigger.
That was an arbitrary number, I think. I just drug down until I ran out of screen. So yeah, they recommended a tier list with the thing you see on TikTok and YouTube where you do put things in S tier and A tier, B, C, and D tier, and then that's how you sort.
I don't know if I should admit this. I feel too old to make a tier list. I don't know if I'm allowed by law to make a tier list.
Oh, I've seen people older than you make tier lists, Brad.
Okay.
So I think we're gonna do it. I think tier list is a good call, just because it doesn't make sense to sort the bad stuff.
Well, I mean, it does get to the weakness of the ranking format, which is when you have too many things to rank and the differences are too arbitrary.
The arbitrariness is where the magic happens, I think.
Well, okay, for some definitions of magic, sure.
Yeah,
but you can definitely get mired in just kind of meaningless back and forth about like, oh, this should be 2 spots higher.
Meaningless
VGA versus UHF. Is there really that big a distinction? Like the tier list is more of an absolute qualitative analysis as opposed to this relative horse trading back and forth,
Yeah. So
and I'm thinking this through in real time because we've never done a tier list before. I guess it's a nice way to just be able to say like each tier can be as big as you want, right? So like you can have as many S tier connectors as you want. So I don't have to worry about you saying the Lightning should be below RJ45 because they both get to be S.
So I think we did call this a ranking of connectors, though. So I think that we should limit S to 10 items, so that then we can take that S tier and rank the top 10.
Oh boy,
from 10 to 1.
All right,
so we can, because identifying the best connector ever made is the goal here.
I mean, I haven't consulted with the tier list governing body. This does seem outside regulation, but all right. Okay,
so I added a new column to the spreadsheet, which is the tier column. And then I'm going to drag down from what's currently 1 through 10, which includes XLR and B and C, and make that the S column for right now.
Okay.
And then let's see. Then the next 3 things on the list in order are Lightning, HDMI, and FireWire.
Okay. Yeah. So actually, you're getting to the first order of business, which is that we have to convert this currently spotty ranked list into tiers.
Yeah. I think FireWire is not an A tier connector, but people did rightly point out it was way faster than USB at the time, and it provided power too, which was kind of nice.
Yeah, it was a great thread on the Discord for this episode because there were a lot of factoids coming in. I think FireWire could do like 15 watts or something pretty beefy.
The problem with it was it wasn't big enough to run an actual camera off of. So it wasn't like you could charge your camera off of it or something like that, because most of the cameras that used FireWire probably had external batteries that docked into external battery chargers. Was it at least enough to like run the camera to dump whatever was on the camera though without external power? No, you still had to have battery or power because a lot of the cameras at that point were still DV tape. Okay. So they had mechanical stuff. Yeah. I don't think this is a diss on FireWire, but Tyler W in the Discord. Did you see his story about FireWire ports dying at E3? Oh yeah, I'm pretty sure I was there for that. You were there for that one. Yeah, in fact, our time at GameSpot overlapped pretty accurately. Yeah, I don't remember what year that was, but and I don't remember what they did about it. We should get him to
fill in some more details. My memory is a bit spotty at this point, but like the upshot is I can't remember what exactly the electrical conditions were, but like every video editor at GameSpot had put all their editing computers on the mains in the booth, while the Teamsters were still working on, basically the union guys were still working on building up the show floor.
So stuff was sagging.
I guess it was a sag or a surge or something. I don't know what happened. Again, I don't know what the electrical conditions were exactly, but
things went bad.
Basically every FireWire port on every editing rig that was on that chain at the GameSpot E3 booth got fried all at once, and that was how they dumped footage from their cameras.
Oh my god!
Like the day before E3 started. I don't remember what they did about it, but it was bad.
Okay. So I think FireWire is the start of B tier.
Yeah,
is my proposal.
I don't think that's a knock against FireWire as such, to be clear.
No, I think FireWire is good. I think it's a solid A, a solid B.
Okay,
so maybe it's an A. Who knows? It might move up.
Does that mean Lightning and HDMI are A tier then? I
think Lightning and HDMI feel A tier to me. But you can make your case for moving Lightning up, and I'm going to just keep it down where it is.
Okay. I should not appeal to populism here. I will try to resist doing that, but there was a lot of pro-Lightning sentiment on the Discord.
Well, those people have all been banned, and we won't be hearing from their like again. So,
even I might not argue that Lightning deserves S tier. Man, this is so much easier than numbered ranking.
It is an easier process.
But I think I would be quite happy with Lightning at A. Actually, I think Lightning's pretty good.
Okay. I'll move Lightning up, and when we get to the point where we're out, I'll put it right at the bottom of that list, so that when things need to get bumped down a notch, then they can. No problem.
Yep.
I think B is FireWire USB 3 Type B, the tall B, and USB Type B.
Yes, appropriate.
And then it stops before you get to the 30-pin Apple dock.
Yeah, although
that thing is pretty useful. It has analog, it has digital, it does power. It's really janky. It breaks easily. The 30-pin.
I don't think I ever owned a device that had a 30-pin on it, so I can't speak to it.
You didn't have an iPhone before the...
Oh, wait, no, 5? That's right. Duh. Yes, I do have in fact, I've got a 3G sitting in this drawer. Hang on.
Mm-hmm. The female end of it's not the problem. The male end is the problem. It's always the male end that's the problem.
I'm reaching into my graveyard of...
Is it swollen?
All of my old cell phones are just in this drawer right next to me.
If I still had a site that did video about phones, Jesus, that's a stack of phones. I would take the oldest phone that you have there into T-Mobile and be like, hey, I want to trade in my phone and get the full, because they do a deal right now where it's like, trade in any phone and you get a full ass new phone.
Sure. Yeah.
15 Pro Max.
Here's my 3G. It does, in fact, as we all know.
Baby phone for babies.
30-pin connector on it. Here's my 5.
That's I think the 5 is still my favorite.
I love the 5, man. Just like we were really derailing this podcast.
Yeah, we got to focus, man. We haven't ranked anything yet.
Holding this iPhone 5 in my hand makes me realize or remember how good the iPhone 5 was.
iPhone 5 is a good size phone. I don't think my eyes could use it anymore.
I'm trying to remember how flimsy the 30-pin was. Wasn't it? It was prone to breakage, right?
So the problem with the 30-pin is it's one way. It wasn't reversible.
Okay.
And if you used it in any way that put any kind of flex on the connector, then it eventually would wear out really quickly.
Sure.
So like if you had a dock in your car, for example, you jocked into it seemed like you could just chalk it into the dock, but not really is the thing.
Sure.
So I think that's a C tier. It was also huge. And it was another proprietary cable. I feel like if it's on the edge, then the proprietariness always should knock it down.
Well, we can save this.
We can put it in B.
No, I might argue it goes in D.
Oh, so then where does D start? Okay, so USB micro B, wide micro.
Hang on. Is there no F tier in this system?
I mean, we can make an F tier if you want. The rules, there's no governing body of tiers.
I'm sitting here looking at,
the tier ranker does not put an F in by default.
It would be nice to get this into the traditional format at some point. So I'm going to say we should adhere to the accepted guidelines. There is no F tier on tiermaker.com.
I'm looking at Smash or Pass Video Game Edition and seeing how they rank stuff. They have an F. They have an E too. That's madness.
Oh wait, can you just add tiers willy-nilly?
Yeah, you can add tiers if you want.
Oh, well, okay.
Tiermaker Live most voted is most definitive cartoon badass. Personal faves SA. Oh, there's too many here.
Nope. Oh, you can in fact add as many tiers as you want.
Yeah, I need to know what like the all-time best tier ranking is. We're not actually doing a tier maker thing just because it's not we're not doing a video, so it didn't make sense. 1,000 video games. Nope, that's a 10 out of 10. I think we can do whatever we want. We can have an F. We can not have an F.
Oh, you can even change to all kinds of just any color you want.
You can change the labels. You can change the colors. Get buck wild if you want.
I've added both E and F to this tier list, except they're out of order. E is somehow below F.
Oh, that's bad. Okay, so you think 30-pin dock is the start of D? I'm okay with that.
We can leave it at C for now.
Let's look, make those hard cuts now while it's easier.
I'm mostly just thinking about how kind of unwieldy it is physically and prone to.
Yeah, I think it's a bad connector too, Brad, just like Lightning. What about USB Micro 3B? USB 3 Micro B, the wide micro.
I think that's probably fine at D.
You think it's a D or an F?
That's the one to remind people. That's the one that's the regular micro USB with the little extra notch to the side. Yeah,
the extra notch is for power, it turns out.
Is that the case? I thought I remember people chiming in saying that was not the case, but I could be wrong about that. It is backwards compatible, though, I believe.
Well, now I'm going to go look because I thought the chat said it was for power. I don't know why I'm calling him chat also. Tom AU also, Tom, I guess who's from Australia. I see AU because I'm on PC and I don't see the flag.
I prefer it at this point, actually.
Really?
I have not soapboxed about this.
We've talked about this before, I think.
Every operating system on Earth should let you mouse over or click on or whatever the little flag emoji is to figure out what country they're from, because I have not memorized every 197 flags on Earth or whatever. So I'd rather get the initials, honestly.
The weird thing for me is that when I look at Discord on the iPhone versus when I look at it on PC, I think of these as two different people because I like see Stead GB on the PC. Mm-hmm. And that to me is a different person than Stead with the flag. Anyway,
to be clear, I know an Australian flag by
sure you do, Brad.
But there are a lot of flags.
Yeah. But anyway, Tom pointed out that the wide micro is for speeds, not power.
Okay.
So good call.
Academic distinction for the purposes of ranking, however, I think.
Yeah, no, I don't think it matters. I think it still sucks. So is it a D or an F is the question.
Well, are we doing F? Not to just make this whole thing about coming up with rules for this thing.
I mean, I feel like having an F, I feel like having a real insult to injury category is good, right?
You're right. We should, a total failure category. Absolutely.
Like PS2 port definitely feels like an F category. I don't know if the USB wide micro is in the same spot.
Not to just relitigate the ports we already ranked, although we are converting here. So I guess we kind of have to, but like, I would say for how much the PS2 port improved on the old serial, kind of like, remember having used a serial connection for your mouse?
Yeah. Like, you could plug that in and not crash your computer, not break your motherboard.
Okay, fair, but I don't know. PS2 port still felt like an improvement over that.
It had a clear up and down, unlike the PS2 port.
Yeah, I guess, sure. It's sampled so slowly though. Like, so I remember my memory of serial mouse is that the input was extremely jittery.
That's true.
And was not fun to use from that standpoint.
Probably your computer was slow though.
Yeah,
too.
Maybe.
Also remember how good the old AT keyboard port was? The big chonky one?
I don't know if I ever used one.
Oh man, it's so good.
I guess our first family computer was pre-ATX now that I think about it. So I probably did. I would give anything if we still had that computer, but
I think the PS2, I think we put it at the bottom. We put it at spot 76.
Yeah.
I think to me that says F tier.
That's
the question is, does wide micro also mean F tier?
I'd say that's D for now.
Okay. D for now.
All right. Okay. We should rank some new cables.
Now we can rank new cables. You want to pick one?
Sure.
I feel like I've been doing a lot of talking.
Okay. Well, my eyes just landed on TOSLINK.
Ooh.
Speediff, if you like.
Spidiff?
Speediff.
I don't know. I think Speediff is how people say it. But
I think I've mostly heard Speediff.
But I think that's the format, and TOSLINK is that little kind of weird square connector with some corners cut off. Yeah, that's mostly used for fiber.
I've never been clear what the distinction is there. Actually,
well, Speediff is a transport standard, I believe.
A type of digital audio interface used in consumer audio equipment. These Speediff, I probably should have known this. It stands for the Sony Philips Digital Interface.
Yeah.
Okay. Speediff is a data link layer protocol as well as a set of physical layer specifications.
So it's both.
It looks like SpeedIF can go over multiple connectors.
You can go over RCA and this fiber one. The RCA is for coax.
Apparently over USB as well in some cases.
That seems, I've never ever seen that, but
According
probably in like high-end audio gear.
I mean, TOSLINK is the thing I actually want to talk about here because that's the unique connector, and also, it uses light.
Yeah, it was the first fiber I ever bought.
Yeah.
It makes a nice click when you push it in.
It does, actually. I came pretty late to TOSLINK. I didn't have any audio gear that used optical.
Oh man, as soon as those cables cost less than $100 and I had something that I could plug one thing into the other thing with it, I was like, hell yeah, we're TOSLINKing this baby up.
Were you doing multi-channel? Were you doing like 5.1? Because I've to this day, I am just on 2.0 straight up stereo in the living room. God.
Well, so when we lived in that loft south of Market, we had the rear channels set up and hung on the wall, and it was amazing because that room was mostly soundproof, and you could we watched movies real loud on the big 55-inch rear projection.
As somebody who still rides the volume up and down in this place, I'm very jealous. But you're not wrong. Plugging in TOSLINK for the first time is like eye-opening. It's like, man, that's not even a click. It's like a thunk.
Yeah, it has a real nice tactile feel. It only goes in one way, but it's keyed so you can turn it and get it from behind without having to be able to see the port.
Yep.
I think this is a solid A or B for me.
I'm sure you know this. If you have an active TOSLINK connection and you look at the end of the cable, you can see the red light coming out.
Yeah, you can blind yourself that way.
Which is some Terminator kind of shit.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool. Awesome.
The cables were real fragile too. You had to be real careful how you bent them.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I've ever broken one of those, but I bet that's the case.
I always had the fear.
I could see that. Well, they're pretty short, right?
No, they can be real long. That's the beautiful thing about TOSLINK. I had a real long one time. It was great. I used them for 5.1 computer speakers for a long time too.
Okay. Yes, TOSLINK, pretty awesome. I'm gonna say that's A.
You think that's A? I'd give that an A.
Yeah.
Put it up here. Link SPDIF. Okay, you want to do the baby TOSLINK while we're at it?
Sure, although I've never touched one of those before.
Oh, I have. Yeah. So sound cards for a long time used these, and it basically would take one of the 3/8 inch. Is that right? The 5 the little quarter inches.
Oh, you mean
1/8 inch? Eighth inch or
1/8 inch, 3.5 millimeter.
Thank you. That's what it was. Sorry, I've been sick and am like still a little stuffy headed. So, but yeah, they basically took the back end out of one of those, and you jam this long plastic thing into it, and it would dock a a fiber connector into an optical transceiver on the end of the 1/8.
Oh, so it's like an adapter, basically.
It's its own thing, but yeah, it was just a way to have a TOSLINK that wasn't as vertically tall, basically, for like low profile connectors.
Okay, I'll defer to you on that one because I don't think I've ever used one.
I think it's pretty mid. I give it a solid C. I think
C. All right, sure.
It doesn't make the clunk.
Okay, well, yeah, then forget it.
Yeah, no clunk. Get the hell out of here. Okay, so those we can read up. What else we got?
Oh boy, it's gonna make me keep picking, huh?
I mean, you're doing good so far. Those were easy.
Okay, here's a weird one that I can't speak to, but I hope you can. The Apple Desktop Bus.
Oh God, it's F. Wow. Stream F.
Wow,
it's basically a PS2 port.
Oh, okay. So I'll refer people again to we'll keep linking these in the show notes. The Cable Bible page on I guess AMIA opensource.github.io is the one we're looking at, but they've got a picture of the ADB here, and yes, it is a mini DIN 4-pin, which
it's the same as S-Video is what it is.
Basically looks like S-Video or PS2 more or less.
It's literally the same connector as S-Video, so it has the pins.
Okay.
I don't think they extended past so you could twist it and not fuck up your connector like you could with PS2.
Now I remember this from my time in school media centers in the late 80s and early 90s. Because they have a picture here of the on the side of the keyboard. Is this is this like an all-purpose cable? Like plug this is the one cable that goes into your computer and then everything connects to this kind of thing?
Yeah, but also, so this plugged into the computer, and then I believe you could also plug the mouse into the keyboard from this point.
That's what I mean. Yeah. It's like here's your one connection to the computer and then all the peripherals kind of daisy chain. or at least the keyboard and mouse do.
This was bad enough, as I recall, that people were really excited when Apple went to USB, where nobody else in the industry was really feeling great about USB at the time.
Sure. Is this the only mini DIN 4-pin? Like
it's S-Video.
Oh, is S-Video literally 4?
Literally.
Oh, you're right. You're right.
It's literally the exact same connector as S-Video.
You're right. Okay. I mean, at that point, I feel like we're almost ranking the mini DIN 4-pin rather than the ADB.
I think I'm fine with that. I mean, S-Video, so this is the question again. Like, do we talk about what the conveyance was? Because like S-Video was a significant video quality upgrade, but the connector sucked. I think we're talking about connectors here.
I never minded the S-Video connector. I was pretty pro S-Video, although I didn't have S-Video until the early 2000s, I want to say.
Yeah. So I had S-Video. I guess that's when I got S-Video too, is when I moved here and got a new TV. I don't know. Okay, well, so first off, I think it's important to say ADB was electrically unsafe to hot swap.
Oh, what?
So you had to power it off.
The whole computer?
You had to, just like the PS2 ports.
That's crazy.
I think for that reason, because S-Video you could unplug, you could hot plug.
Oh yeah.
I think this is a F tier.
F. Wow. I mean, I was going to suggest B, but I'll go with you on that.
Well, I mean, it has all the problems of PS2. I could maybe argue that because you can daisy chain it, it would be D. But also there were a lot of peripherals that didn't have the female port, so you couldn't actually daisy chain it. And I'm sure Apple only put one of these ports on the main device, so I bet that was absolutely a problem.
Let's try a D for this, I think.
You think a D?
Yeah. I have to, this is kind of out of scope for this exercise, but I have a fascination with that era of computing and the multi-port kind of all-in-one connections that a lot of vendors came up with back then. Like Apple is one thing, but if you look at like stuff like the SGIs of the time, like they were and Next, I think Next was big on this, for example. Like they were big on like, hey, there's one cable that connects everything.
I know you like that.
Like here's the one cable that goes from this computer to everything. Like we have run power and video and input and everything over this one giant industrial looking cable that we have made proprietarily for our $10,000 workstation. Like that stuff's really fascinating to look back on.
So picture a world where you have that one cable that goes to all of your input devices and all of your like low bandwidth devices. And it's a great big long daisy chain. And also the cable on the mouse is really short. And if you accidentally disconnect it, it can blow a fuse on your motherboard that requires soldering to replace.
I mean, to be clear, I've never used one of these connections and probably am glad I didn't.
Yeah.
I just think they're cool in concept.
I'll take D, but I might move that down. But we might have a conversation about that.
That's fine. I'm definitely not advocating for it in any serious respect.
Apple desktop bus is red. It's been slotted into the D tier.
Yep. All right. I'm nominating you to pick the next one.
Okay. Let's do, let's see. I didn't read up the 30 pin there. What about SCART?
SCART, man, I was kind of saving SCART for later because it's such a heavy hitter, but
I mean, we can save SCART.
Let's talk about SCART.
I think SCART's pretty good.
Here's the thing about me and SCART. I'm not sure I've ever touched a SCART cable, but
I also have never touched a SCART cable.
Wow. That's kind of shocking to me. I guess for obvious reasons, SCART is not big in the United States. Like, in fact, SCART kind of was not a thing at all here.
No, SCART was a thing that you heard about as like, oh, look at how good the Euros have it. Yeah. It's also known as Paratel or Paratelevision.
Oh.
In France.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, 21 pin. So it's a 21 pin connector. It's got a top and a bottom. It only goes in one way.
Okay, here's the thing I would say about SCART. And I guess not. I don't know if every SCART cable is a ribbon cable, but the one on the Cable Bible is.
The one on Wikipedia is too.
This is the most spaceship from Alien looking cable on this entire list. Like this is the most Nostromo. Like every monitor on the Nostromo is connected by SCART. This is the rudest looking 70s video technology imaginable, and for that reason alone, I want to put it pretty high. But like people that used SCART seem to love it by and large, like for multiple reasons. Like I know people liked SCART back in the day for its like RGB capabilities, just for high quality video. But then also you see people talking about how satisfying it is to plug it in and what a thunk it makes. And, we're pretty pro thunk here.
We like a thunk. Yep. We like a thunk. And I also like, do you remember having the conversations with people? You might not because you were a little bit young for this, but like when it went from twisting on the BNC coax, which was one cable that brought in the signal from the antenna or the cable box or whatever, to like having to do RCA cables, that was very difficult for the older generation. And there were a lot of conversations about which color went to which color. And like to you and I know that seems pretty straightforward. Like you plug the yellow one into the yellow one and the red one into the red one and the white one into the white one.
How else would that work?
But look, man, I don't know. But it came up every time. I would always get calls from my parents who were like, hey, the TV's all purple. And it was because they plugged the green into the red and the red into the look. Mistakes were made, like making the component colors not friendly to 15% of the male population of the world. Probably not a great idea because red and green, you know.
For color blindness reasons, that makes more sense.
But the fact that they packed audio, composite video, component video. I don't know if they had like a S video, like a luminance and chroma separation in here, but it also was bidirectional. So like when you plugged in a VCR or something, you could change the channel on the TV to the right channel.
Wait, what?
When you turn the TV on. Yeah, what? Dude.
Wait, it was like a proto HDMI CEC.
Yep.
Interesting.
Yep.
It can carry S video. I'm looking at it on the Cable Bible. They've got, in fact, this is something that fascinates me about connectors versus standards, which we keep harping on is a connector like this that shows up in so many different categories because it can be so many different things.
I don't think it had digital ever, right?
I don't think so.
I think I think HDMI supplanted this entirely in the digital world, but
I don't think so. I will say this is pretty personal and arbitrary and anecdotal, but when I grew up in rural North Carolina and had access to whatever I had access to there, like video game wise. But when I got on the internet finally and started hanging out on IRC and talking to a fair number of Europeans and Australians about video games, SCART as a term, as a concept, took on this like mythological quality.
Imagine one cable that was just the good one.
Like the way that some people talked about SCART just gave it this mystique that made me so fascinated by it. I was just like, man, how good can this cable be? Like how good can this quality, this signal be? That people are like, people talk about modding SCART into things and stuff. And I was just like, man, this must be the ultimate video. I've talked about it before, but I hope to mod a SCART connection into that Trinitron in my parents' basement.
Well,
and then I will have my own SCART.
I hope that you get that SCART at some point, Brad.
Thank you. But it's a life goal.
The one thing I will say is that SCART did not support hot plugging.
Really?
Because it was carrying a fairly high voltage, is what Wikipedia says. So no risk of personal injury, but you could damage the electronics within devices if the connector was inserted improperly.
That's not great. I mean, look, that was kind of everything at a point.
I think it was so much better than everything else that was on the market at the time that I think this still is a pretty clear S rank for me.
Oh, wow. Okay. I guess I'm fine with that. My only reservation is that it feels a little bit irresponsible to award an S to something that neither of us has ever used.
I think that's a real testament to, look, I'm fine bumping Lightning off of the S tier if you're worried about it. And then we can just put SCART in that slot. It's fine.
I think there's plenty of room in the S tier for now.
Okay. So we can revisit when we run out of space in the S tier, but I think we start there.
Looking at the S tier though, like there is a very heavy analog and industrial kind of bias to the S tier so far.
Look, maybe that's the lesson, right?
XLR, BNC, and SCART are all in the S tier as of now.
I mean, those are all good connectors from where I'm sitting.
I can't deny.
What about the classic tip ring sleeve, the 1/4 inch?
1/4 inch.
The big boy.
Man, talk about a good thunk.
It's a good thunk.
1/4 inch for people who don't know audio. I mean, I'm trying to think. It's like what you would plug into a guitar and an amp.
Yeah, well, that would be a mono receiver, probably,
or your receiver. Well, just in terms of the way the general shape and size of the connector, like your AV receiver, almost certainly the headphone port or jack on an AV receiver is a 1/4 inch, not an 1/8 inch is what plugged into your iPod or your Walkman.
Yeah, or your phone for back in the days when that was a thing.
Yeah, and 1/4 inch is the big fat version of that.
Yeah, the neat thing about 1/4 inch is it comes in different number of channels, so you can get tip ring sleeve, which is tip ring sleeve. That's one channel.
3 channels, right?
No, because the ring is the separating bit. Right?
Oh, wait, is TRS stereo? Is TRS just plain stereo and nothing else? Oh, because you need a ground, right?
TRS is stereo. You need three wires to do stereo.
Because one of those is a ground.
Yeah, so TRS is stereo. TS is mono.
Right. Yes.
But I think they even do tip ring sleeve where you can have like.
Oh, they do 3 R's. There's TRRR and wait, hang on, how many R's was that? There's T3RS basically for like Astro uses that stuff. I think like some like headsets that use that have extra well, but also like extra like inline controls, like mute controls, stuff like that. Like they'll use an extra ring for control signals.
I think that's on the 1/8 inch though, the 3.5 millimeter ones. And also the TRR, the 3Rs is an Astro proprietary thing, is what the internet is telling me.
Are you sure? Maybe you're right. Maybe that is the case.
The TRRRS, it seems like there's a lot of confusion. The main thing to know is that the number of metal rings is the number of channels you have minus number of metal rings -1 is the number of channels the cable can carry.
Yes. I am looking on Pro Video Coalition.
Oh, that's where I am too.
In a section called Combating the Misconnection Epidemic.
Yep.
They say that TRRR, God, I can't, it's really hard to count those R's out. TRRRS, yes. Apparently Sony also used in some devices.
Yeah, that seems right.
Over time. So it is a standard connection.
Like
anyway,
a lot of Android phones in the early 2010s used four channels.
Right. Okay.
I recall, and none of them were compatible with each other. It was really annoying.
Yeah, because a while back I tried to find a 1/4 inch to basically Astro, like a 1/4 inch to TRRS.
You gotta get that from Astro.
Could not find it. I could not find a cable that will just plug straight from my receiver into my A40s.
Yep.
But there were a lot of like Android phone adapters that you would see for that kind of thing.
Well, but okay, so this is off the point though. The point is good thunk, solid connectors.
Yeah, I'm going to say the number of rings is not really material here. We're talking more just the general plug.
Yeah, I think this is a solid A for me.
Yeah, okay, sure. 1/4 inch feels like a good A. I mean, I'm using a 1/4 inch into this audio interface right now.
How do we feel about the 1/4 inch mini, the 1/8?
Oh, I was going to say, isn't that just an 1/8 inch?
Yeah, it is.
Man,
is it better or worse than the 1/4 inch?
I would venture a guess that the 1/8 inch connector is probably the most handled connector on Earth.
Audio connector, probably USB at this point.
Maybe so. Yeah, maybe so. I mean, if you factor in like the entire span of time since the first cable was conceived, what was the first cable? What was the first cable ever made?
Power, right?
Okay, I guess I'm kind of setting power to the side there. Like I mean more like something that carried some kind of signal.
So the first one that you could then probably telegraph, which were just wires, they weren't cables.
Yeah. Does that count though? If you're just plugging a wire in, I'm not sure if that's not a connector.
I feel like then so if you want to talk about connectors, the things that telephone operators used prior to electronic switching,
like a switchboard, they were plugs,
switchboard, that was 1/4 inch monos.
Oh, was it really?
I believe so.
Okay. Anyway, back to the point. Yeah, maybe USB is more handled than 1/8 inch at this point, but there were a lot of 1/8 inch plugs used for several decades, and still would be if some people had their way. I
mean, I'll go and tell you, I often wish that we still had the 1/8 inch on the phones.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are with you on that.
I guess I like that it's not that the phone is a tiny bit thinner, but the flexibility of not having that blows.
Yeah.
So I also feel like this was a pretty fragile connector though.
A little bit. I don't think I ever broke one.
I definitely broke them. I broke adapters a lot because I was using a pair of headphones that had a 1/4 inch headphone jack at that point, and the adapters were like they didn't hold up over time compared to the 1/4 inch.
I could see that. Speaking of both adapters and phones, do you have like a Lightning to 1/8 inch or a USB-C to 1/8 inch adapter that you have used with a phone? Because I do.
I have a drawer directly to my right that has a phone box that probably still has the one that came with like, I don't know, an iPhone 6 or something in it.
No, that one still had a headphone jack. It was like was it the 8? Did the 8 lose the jack?
The problem is now I have a USB-C iPhone, so my Lightning adapter doesn't work anymore.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure I have to assume USB-C to headphone adapters are like $5 now.
I'm sure. Yeah.
Not that, I mean, having to carry an adapter and then not being able to charge while you're using your headphones is a pain, I will grant. But anyway, none of this has anything to do with the 1/8 inch, which.
Yeah.
I maybe like a B for me.
Yeah. This feels like one lower than the 1/4 inch to me.
Yeah, I think that's right.
This is the 3.5 millimeter / 1/8 inch.
Yeah.
Okay. What else we got? What's next?
How How about, oh boy, my eyes have landed on the storage block.
Oh, this is exciting.
We should probably tackle one of these. For example, PATA or IDE, as it actually should be known. SCSI, although SCSI of the era, I think, is multiple connectors. SATA, eSATA, there's like this whole block of storage here.
SCSI got real weird after the time when consumers would have been using SCSI.
Did it?
Yeah, it's there's a lot. Like it got weird for a while, and then it got to just started using SATA cable, special versions of SATA connectors, basically.
Yes, because now I think we just talked about this on the shucking episode a few weeks ago. Like there's SCSI over USB now.
Yep, anything could be SCSI.
I'm trying to think. I think I saw something else that SCSI ran over not long ago that I can't think of. Anyway, yeah, even on the cable Bible, there are 6 different connections for SCSI here. It's the 50 pin that I remember. I think that's like it's a 50 pin ribbon. You could daisy chain up to, I think, 7 devices on or something. Yeah, that sounds right.
It needed to be terminated, which is a minus.
Yes. I guess we're just talking about SCSI now, because the SCSI 50 pin and the IDE, which was 40, right? Wasn't IDE 40?
Well, 40 but then eventually 80 wires, because they did some signaling tricks to make it faster.
Right. Those are quite similar. They're not identical, but they're both big fat storage ribbon cables.
They're keyed ribbon cables. They have a one. They only go in one way. They're big wide ribbon cables that are a huge pain in the ass to work with.
This is embarrassing. I guess are we just talking about both of these now? Let's just talk about both, because they're similar.
I think these
enough.
are both going to fall in the same spot probably.
This is embarrassing. You could not daisy chain IDE, right? Like it was one cable, one drive.
No, 2 drives. So that you had they used. Look, okay, apologies. They used master and slave terminology for PATA drives, and you had to move a jumper on the back of the drive. I think now I would call them secondary and primary.
Yes, that's probably the way to go now.
It didn't matter which one was which. The performance was the same.
But what I mean, though, is that like that was back when like it was pretty spendy to own more than one hard drive, for example. Like you probably had one hard drive and one CD-ROM in an average consumer computer back then.
Yeah, and most computers would have 2 IDE ports. So you'd like, if you cared about the benefit of having 2 was that you could put each one on its own chain, and then you wouldn't have to share the bandwidth on the across the 2 drives. But if you were plugging in a hard drive and a optical drive, it probably didn't matter.
Right. You could just put the CD-ROM on the second connector on the one cable. The CD-ROMs were slow anyway.
Yep. And hard drives were slow. It was everything was slow back then.
It's true. You did have to worry about jumpers with IDE, although that's not, I don't know if that's germane here to the connector.
Yeah, I mean, I think jumpers are important. SATA, you had to, SCSI, you had to worry about jumpers as well.
Yeah, how did you terminate something on a SCSI chain? I can't remember. Was that just a jumper switch?
No, I think you had a thing that you plugged in at the end.
Something you plugged in. I cannot remember how that worked.
It's been a really long time since I thought about SCSI in that context. I had SCSI drives in the 90s, and then the SATA, when the parallel ETA stuff got fast enough, it stopped being worth fooling with.
Yes, that's correct. That's exactly my case as well.
And then SATA hit, and then you never thought about SCSI again if you weren't running a whole buttload of drives.
Yeah.
But I mean, if we're talking about connectors, these are both ribbon cables.
Yeah.
They were both kind of a pain. If you plugged them in wrong, you could jack up the motherboard or the drive and then have to work on the pins with a mechanical pencil, which was never good. I think these are both like C/D tiers for me.
C. I'd say C. Like there's a bit of nostalgia to these, to be fair, for me.
Like for me, yeah, but I'm taking nostalgia out of it. For me, I think the gap between C and D is, does maybe D and F have the potential for hardware destruction, and C does not.
Fair. Yes.
Right.
I don't know that I could really distinguish between in terms of quality, like SCSI and IDE. SCSI cables were a lot stiffer in my memory. Well, IDE.
I think that was a cable by cable.
Any ribbon cable was pretty stiff, to be fair.
Nobody made those cool rounded SCSI cables, though.
That's true. But by the time people were doing that, I think SCSI was just not really worth it at that point. Like that was rounded IDE cables was toward the end of IDE in general.
Yeah, that didn't start until I was at Maximum PC probably, and it was always a little iffy.
Did you use those? I sure did.
Yeah, we did. We did a bunch of testing on them to see if we could make them be slower than regular cables, and for the most part, they were fine.
Yeah, I never had an issue. What was just for people who don't remember, what was the deal with the ribbon cables? Like every other every other wire is like a ground or something like that. Like
So-
it's supposed to be a signal integrity thing.
On the 80 wire 40 pin cables, they were like it was like a balanced cable basically. So
Like, yeah.
signals would go one way, like a signal would go in opposite directions for each signal sent, so it reduced noise on the lines or
Right.
something.
So the point is changing from the ribbon layout to just a fat bundle of cables in a little sheath was supposed to be not great for signal integrity, but
Yeah, but I think the hack was that you paired the pins with each other and it was fine. The cables with each other and it was fine.
Yeah. I never had an issue. I still have those cables in the closet.
Rounded, eh?
Mm-hmm.
Should we look at?
Did we place those? What are we saying?
I put
Those
them
are
in
both-
D because they can kill your. You can break hardware.
Wait, can you break hardware with them?
You could
Sure.
you could bend pins. You could cause all sorts of
I
problems.
don't know, but they are keyed. They only go in one way.
That's true.
Those feel like a C to me.
You think those are C? I mean,
let's-
I'll move them up,
Let's
but
try it at a
Move
C.
them up.
Just see what happens.
yeah, we don't have a lot in C right now. It's just, I think they're way worse than TOSLINK though.
And before we move on, I think like we're probably not going to get into some of these very esoteric SCSI variants.
No, I don't. Mainly because I don't think either of us have any hands-on experience with them. Not that sort of stopped us with SCART.
Definitely not. I will say though, people again should pull up this Cable Bible site. The SCSI HDI 30 cable though is right up there with SCART on the industrial looking Nostromo scale.
That is very clearly something that you jam into a giant SAN like disk array drive enclosure in a data center someplace.
It's just a big fat rectangular connector with 30 very visible pins on it. Like it's just a big fat 6x5 grid of pins in this.
Yeah.
It looks really cool.
Does it have a physical connector, like a clunking locking
It looks
mechanism?
like it's got some kind of latch. Yeah.
I love it.
Anyway.
Okay, let's talk about some stuff with locking mechanisms. What do you think about DisplayPort, Brad?
Oh man, that's a big question. I think DisplayPort's pretty good.
I generally like DisplayPort.
I think electrically or in terms of signal, hasn't DisplayPort kind of leapfrogged HDMI every generation? Like typically the new DisplayPort shows up at some point after the new HDMI and has better capabilities. Like that's because for a long time you had to get DisplayPort to do certain to drive certain high resolution, high refresh combos on computer monitors. Remember?
Yeah, I think HDMI 2.1 pretty much caught HDMI up, but for a long time, you're right. Yeah.
Now it's not a big deal. Yeah. But for a long time, DVI was DisplayPort was the thing you needed for high refresh computer monitor gaming.
Yeah. And I think really still DisplayPort is what you want if you're on a PC. It's segmented back into the place that you want where HDMI is for TVs pretty much and DisplayPort is for monitors.
Yeah.
I think generally speaking, I like the kind of locking connector that most DisplayPort cables have.
I'm on the fence on that one because I have had it break before.
I've also had it break. That's true.
I've had the release mechanism in the cable break on like a decent, like a Cable Matters, like $10 cable, which maybe that's not the best cable on the planet.
Pretty cheap cable. I had the whole like plastic thing snap off one time.
Oh,
so it was just a raw connector. That one looks really cool, but I don't use it anymore.
The teeth are a little scary. Like the thing that locks into the port.
Yeah.
They look like fangs.
I'm going to say it's hard to plug in. If you have a monitor that the ports are oriented vertically, it's hard to plug in.
Sure, I guess I could see that.
Like I often rotate my monitors on the stand so that I can plug them in and then rotate them back down to put the cables in.
Yeah, I mean it is keyed in a pretty significant way.
You can't feel it with a fingertip though. No, at least I can't.
You're right. Actually, it does feel just kind of rectangular if you're fumbling around.
Yeah. They should have put a dot on one side or something that you could feel with your hand. Yeah,
I also have to plug in a DisplayPort cable without seeing it fairly regularly, and that sucks now that you mention it.
Yep. Yep.
Oh God, don't even get me started on the issues with certain... It's been long enough I can't quite explain this in any detail now, but there are electrical issues with certain pins on DisplayPorts. I think it's like poor implementation stuff.
Oh, for older versions of DisplayPort, probably.
It was like a hot plug thing. Like there's a certain... I am way out of my depth because I've forgotten most of how this works. Somebody on the Discord will chime in. I know I've talked to, this was like 3 years ago. I talked to people on there about it was like feeding power back over a certain pin in DisplayPort could be bad for certain devices. I can't remember how that worked exactly.
But that's like a weird implementation thing. I'm not too worried about that.
But I have had to continuity test a specific pin on a DisplayPort cable before to make sure it was not wired incorrectly or whatever, and that sucked.
I feel like DisplayPort it carries audio, it carries video, it's two-way.
Right. I forgot it could carry audio because typically you're plugging it into a monitor, and who's using the speakers on monitors usually?
I mean, actually, when you put it that way, it's probably a negative, because if my monitor couldn't connect to the PC, then I wouldn't constantly change to the monitor as my output device every time I do a video card update.
Yeah. I mean, I just go disable the audio device on the monitor as soon as I can after that.
I've had it set to don't allow in Windows for years, and a driver update will wake it up every time. Yeah, I don't know. It still feels like a net positive.
DisplayPort's like a E.
I think a B. I was going to say A. Do you feel like DisplayPort is better than HDMI?
Yeah, I think it probably is.
Yeah, because it's keyed. It locks.
Yeah,
I like that it locks.
You know, they don't. I mean, obviously anybody can make whatever they want, I guess, but they don't enforce that requirement, because I have bought DisplayPort cables with no locking mechanism.
That's true. Me too.
And I might actually prefer them. I'm not sure.
I like having the option though.
Yeah, I guess
that's to me. Hey, this is a thing I don't ever want to have to worry about coming unplugged. That's you buy a locking cable. Hey, this is on the back of my desk, which is easily accessible. That one, I'll buy whichever one's cheaper. I don't care.
You mentioning monitors on arms though has made me think about locking connectors again in a new way, because like having a monitor on a like spring-loaded mount, and tethered to an arm with a cable run through some kind of routing apparatus, and that won't just give way if, for example, the monitor like pops up on the spring mount in a way. Like there is some potential for breaking ports on your monitors there with cables that don't just give.
Oh, well, so the way you do that is if you put it on the arm right, then you shouldn't have a problem, because you leave enough slack in the arm that you can do the full range of movement.
Yeah, you say that.
Well, I mean, you can't fight user error.
Things happen. I'm still not 100% sold on locking cables in every context, but I think DisplayPort's probably an A.
Okay, I can get behind that.
And it does a lot of stuff right.
I'm putting it right next to HDMI. They can be buddies.
After I go refresh my memory on those electrical issues, I might come back and
we can talk about it. I don't think we're going to get through this list between now and next week. So
no, I don't think so.
Yeah, this might be our off and on project throughout the entire year, the way it's going so far.
Yeah, I would love to hear what people think. I mean, we're not going to do like a straight month of just this necessarily, but yeah, I wonder what people think about this just being kind of a one-on, one-off or something of that nature.
Yeah, I'd assume next week is probably CES stuff, if there's anything interesting out of CES, which seems like there will be, but I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah. Should we do one more quick one here?
Yeah, we can. You want to do RJ45?
Oh, boy.
Actually, that's a banger. We should save that.
That's not a quick one.
What about... Maybe this isn't a project for the whole year. I'm looking at it. I think we may have one or two more episodes. What about power core? What about a power plug?
Yeah, okay, sure.
What about
we haven't done any power plugs yet? Yeah,
no. The official name of the power plug that goes into your desktop PC's power supply is the C13/C14. The C14 is the one with the vertical pins, and the C13 is one with the that has the face. IEC cord.
I don't think I never knew what.
You've never had a 1200 watt power supply in your computer, Brad?
I guess so. Well, I never knew what the names of any of those were.
Oh yeah. But the difference on the 13 and 14 is the total amount of juice that's carried across that thing.
Fair.
So yeah, I think this is a good one. This one's a banger.
Yeah, I think so. It generally feels good to plug those things in. It's got a nice, they don't click or thunk or anything, but they do have a very nice snug fit.
There's a resistance to it that feels nice.
Yeah.
It's probably one of the older cables on this list, one of the older connectors on this list.
Oh, surely.
Been around for a long time. I've never had it fail. Never lost a power supply because the connector was bad.
Yeah. True.
I don't know. This feels like an A. It's not real magic or anything.
No.
So it does workmanlike.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. It does what it's supposed to do.
Is it an A or a B, I guess, is the question.
Just to be abundantly clear, we were talking about the thing on your computer's power supply, or I guess you said that.
Yeah, it's the
three prong.
It's like a square. It's a rectangle with the corners, two of the corners cut off.
Yeah.
And three prongs.
Also in some video game consoles, the launch PlayStation 3, for example. In fact, I remember.
Oh, that was so good.
I remember the launch PS3 showing up, and I'm looking at that and going like, man, video game consoles are getting serious with this thing is like a computer now.
Didn't the Xbox One have that too? It had a 2-pin one, not a 3-pin. It didn't have a ground.
No, the one, no, and even the 360 had a proprietary power plug into it. They never did the. What is it? C13 is the one.
C13. Actually, the one with no ground is probably different because I feel like Sony did no grounds in one of them.
The PS3 was absolutely just the three prong, like computer power supply version.
Yeah, this feels like a B to me. I think.
You think?
I don't know. I could be convinced.
Yeah, sure. A B is fine for me for this.
Like I like it. I feel like it's like it gets the job done. B is like that's a gets the job done, right?
I've got nothing against it. I can't come up with any like urgent complaints about it.
So that gives we did some work today, Brad.
Yeah. There's a lot more of these are red now, which
we tiered up some stuff
for whatever reason is the color they get marked when they're ranked.
Because that means they're dead to us. We don't have to think about them anymore.
Yep.
Should we run down the list? Should we run down the tiers?
Sure.
Let's see. I think you posted a version of the spreadsheet last week. We'll do that again.
Oh,
this one in the show notes, right?
Well, in fact, that link will still be accurate, I believe.
Oh, okay.
Like that'll just
wow.
That'll just update. That's so
people are getting a preview.
The power of I didn't think about that.
Yeah.
Maybe I should unpublish that.
Maybe.
All right. Let's get into it. S tier.
S tier. What do we got?
XLR, BNC, SCART, and Lightning.
Yeah.
That might be provisional. I'm not sure.
I think that I don't feel good about Lightning being an S tier. I'm just going to say that.
I could see that being an A. Anyway, let's move on.
I'll just move it down to A just for now, since you said you could see it there.
Currently in the A tier is TOSLINK /SpeedIF, HDMI, DisplayPort, and quarter inch audio.
We have a lot of dead space in the A tier. It's not getting filled up.
Yeah. Well, look, a lot of cables left.
That's true.
Are there a lot of A tier cables? I'm not so sure, but
I feel like I don't like any cables is the takeaway. I'm moving stuff up to the top of the tiers.
Okay.
What's in the B tier, Brad?
B tier currently is FireWire, USB 3 Type B, the tall B.
Yeah.
USB Type B.
Okay.
The C13, C14 IEC power cord, and the 1/8 inch or 3.5 millimeter audio jack.
I think that's a respectable list of B tier cables.
Yeah, I think so. C, we've got mini TOSLINK, IDE, and SCSI 50 pin.
Yeah.
D, we have got the 30 pin Apple dock, the Apple desktop bus, and the USB 3 micro B, the wide micro.
Yeah.
And
that all
then
works.
Currently still the lone F tier connector is the PS2 port.
And it's just a note, it's at the bottom of the list, just on general principle.
That still feels weird to me because in my memory, the PS2 port was crucial in a crucial era of gaming.
Well, with
the benefit of historical hindsight, I guess I see it.
Yeah, I think if you had to use it today, you'd feel differently.
Probably. Although again, some people still do use it. But
and on that note, I guess our rankings come to a close for this week. Again, we're going to do something else next week. But if people are enjoying this, please let us know. And if you're not, also let us know. We appreciate all of that. But I think next week, CES stuff. CES is happening. NVIDIA, Intel, AMD all have big events.
Mm-hmm.
If they're just talking about AI crap, I think we're not going to talk about any of it. But I think there's going to be new video cards from NVIDIA, Brad.
It sure does seem like it.
That's the word on the street.
And there are new Intel cards out there that we have not talked about that I'm sure you have got some insight into.
Yeah, I've done benchmarks on them. They're all like, if you need, just to be clear, if you need a $250 video card, that Intel card is really good.
I don't want to just burn next week's episode now necessarily, but like having seen people out there like seeking out Intel GPUs, like going like, oh man, they're sold out everywhere. Like when are they coming back in stock has been mind bending. Like to see Intel GPUs selling out and be highly sought after is just hard to wrap my head around. It's kind of cool to see some legit new competition in the space.
So Brad Charkis over at PC World, who reviewed video cards for them for years, the other Brad in my life, had said that it's the first time since the 1060 that he's been excited about a card in this price tier.
Wow.
In that it's a really good, like you're getting really good performance for the price. And it's like a super capable 1080p card and even good at 1440p in a lot of games.
That's
so
cool. That's very cool.
Highly recommended.
Very conspicuous space in the market for that for some time now that has not been filled.
Yeah, we can talk about it more, but we did benchmarks against a 1080 or 1080 Ti. I can't remember which one, but and it's capable. It's more capable in a lot of ways than that because it also supports XeSS and all of their kind of like AI upscaling and AI frame generation and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And it does, and you can do ray tracing. This is the other thing is you could do ray tracing at 1080p with that card.
Wow.
And it works in games like Cyberpunk and stuff like that. So yeah, we were blown away by it.
Very cool.
This is the part of the show though, I guess, where we remind you that we're listener supported.
We are.
We wouldn't be here without you all, the listeners.
We wouldn't.
So if you're at home, you're yelling at the car and the radio about what jackasses we are for putting SCART so high on the list, or, you know, that the Apple desktop bus was maybe the best thing you ever used and they should bring that back.
Mm-hmm.
First off, we're sorry, but thank you.
You've got some burning experience, burning story with that 30-pin SCSI connector that nobody's ever seen that you just wish we knew about.
Yeah. And I'm going to say, like, this is an ongoing project. I'm open to bribes. If people want to bribe me, if you feel like we need to move stuff higher or lower, let me know.
Yeah.
I can send you a Venmo, whatever, you know, we'll figure it out. But in lieu of that, you can also subscribe to the Patreon, which helps support us and helps keep the show going. We appreciate everybody who backs the Patreon. All of our patrons, you can go to patreon.com/techpod. Again, it's patreon.com/techpod. And for $5 a month, you get access to the TechPod Discord, which is full of people who had a really good conversation about this episode. The last entry in this episode.
Yeah, people have opinions about cables, it turns out.
Yeah, lots of them. And also talk about all sorts of other stuff, like whether it's what's going on in technology. The Food Channel has been a wonderful disaster for me for the last couple of weeks because I've been watching what people have been making over the holidays.
Oh yeah.
And you can join that community too. We also do a monthly patron episode where we talk about things and stuff. This month we kind of just like, I don't know, I feel like we had a ramble about the holidays.
Yeah.
And also DNS and other server stuff and
a lot of institutional like school food preparation.
Yeah, we talked a lot about rectangular pizza. That video is taking the internet by storm. Every Discord, every place I am is talking about the rectangular pizza right now.
Yeah, I should go look at how many views that thing has now.
I'm sure it's on fire.
It's a potent subject for people of a certain age.
Everybody has feelings. My wife and I were like, we should make the rectangular pizza. And my daughter was like, I'm not going to eat that pizza. It looks gross, Dad. So there you go.
It's not that bad.
I bet if you use nice cheese, it would be delicious. Anyway, this is the part of the show where we thank our executive producer tier patrons, including Andrew Slosky, Jordan Lippett, Bunny 20.3 gigabits per second, Twinkle Twinkie, David Allum, and James Kamek. Thank you also so much. Oh, and Pantheon, makers of the HS3 high-speed 3D printer. Thank you also so much. We appreciate each and every one of you. And thanks everybody for listening. And thanks always, as always, Brad.
Mm-hmm. See you next week.
And remember, please consider the environment before printing this podcast.